Hey, Dr. Joan Ifland here. So glad to be joining in with you today. Today we are going to talk about the foods that trigger us into overeating, the foods that trigger us into loss of control, the foods that actually are associated with lots and lots of illnesses. So one of the big things that we're going to be doing today is we're going to be talking about whether these are actually foods or are they drugs? Does our brain think it's food or does our brain think it's drugs? So I am going to share my screen. All right, here we are at foodaddictionresources.com, and I'm going to click on handouts. Handouts are going to take me to a long list of resources. And today what we're going to do is we're going to go to the list of foods that are excluded from our recommended food plan because they are addictive or harmful. So here we are. Now you can reach this list anytime you like at foodaddictionresources.com. So of course the very first food on the list is sweeteners. Why? Because sweeteners activate, hyperactivate the craving pathway in the brain. They are shown in research to be more addictive than cocaine. So if you show rats that, oh, look, here's the cocaine bottle where cocaine is mixed with the water, and here's the sugar bottle, the rats will choose the sugar. And they will even choose artificial sweeteners over cocaine. So it's not just because the sugar has calories in it, it's because of the taste. Because dopamine is more activated by sugar than it is by cocaine. And the tobacco industry in the 1980s came into processed foods and started putting very, very high levels of sugar in everything. So we got exposed again and again and again without our knowledge. So we didn't ask for this, and nobody is at fault for having these intense cravings, because every time you got exposed to sugar in these products, hidden in all different kinds of products, like where you wouldn't expect it, like bread and tomato sauce and pasta sauce, just why is there so much sugar in there? Well, because it's addictive, and that's what the tobacco companies do. They load up products, like they loaded up cigarettes with addictive substances, then they loaded up processed foods with addictive substances and didn't really tell anybody. So we continued to buy the same products we'd always bought, except now they were highly addictive, and that taught these craving pathways in our brain to associate intense cravings, and eventually so intense that we lost control over it. And it was sugar, it was very cheap, high fructose corn syrup, all other kinds of sweeteners, artificial sweeteners, added to everything. And so now, without our agreement, without our cooperation, without our knowledge, hundreds of millions of people are now addicted to sugar by this method. So anytime you put a concentrated sweetener in your mouth, or even for a lot of people, high sugar fruits like bananas and cherries and grapes are way too sweet and they will lose control over them. So we go for the lower sugar fruits like apples and oranges. So this is our first category of any kind of a sweetener. Flour is our next category, because flour is so finely ground up these days. It started in the early 1900s when they invented the big steel rollers, and when you put a grain through that, it was able to powder it at a high heat. And that just turned it into, our body really reacts to that more like sugar, because it gets into our system all at once. We get a great big glucose surge. Our pancreas releases insulin. Insulin puts all that extra glucose into fat cells, and then we drop, and we're hungry again right away. So in addition to activating the craving pathways, these products can also give us low blood sugar, which drives hunger, just drives us to eat. We might have just eaten a big bowl of cereal, but that cereal is all sugar, flour, and dairy. And then we're hungry again within the hour. But that's why. That's why. So the next category is excessive salt. This is great research conducted by Dr. Mark Gold at the University of Florida, where he was running a morphine recovery clinic. So morphine addicts would come in, they want to get off morphine, they'd go to the cafeteria, and what he noticed is that they would screw off the top of the salt shakers and just pour the whole container onto their food. And he thought, oh, salt must be able to activate the same opiate pathways, these are addiction pathways in the brain, as morphine. So now we do have evidence that very high levels of salt do activate the same pathways as morphine. And the food industry has studied this. And what they know, children are not born with salt addiction. They are born with a preference for sugar, but not salt. And if you put enough salt into children's food, children will develop salt addiction. And so that's why when you look at children's meals, they're very, very high in salt. That is the tobacco industry coming through processed foods to addict your children to salty foods. That's what's going on there. That's what's really going on. Processed fats. So processed fats activate the same pathway as marijuana. I know this is going to sound really funny, but it's called the endocannabinoid pathways. So endo means within us. Cannabis, cannabinoid, it stands for like cannabis, marijuana. Processed fats activate the same pathway as marijuana. And the researchers at the food industry, which we know is really the tobacco industry, they know that you can put as much fat as you can fit into a product and people will love it. So these processed foods are just full of sugar, fat, salt. They just think of them like an empty vessel, because when you process foods, they lose their taste, their texture, and their color. They're icky. But if you fill them up with food coloring and sugar, fat, salt, people will love them because they're actually getting more like a fix than food. So I hope this makes sense. Dairy is like a perfect storm. Dairy has sugar in it, lactose, it has fat in it, it has a little bit of salt in it. Most addictively, it has 4 kinds of casomorphine in it. These are natural morphines in the product, and they are designed to put a baby calf to sleep after the calf has eaten. And so they are mood altering. They have been shown to attach to our opiate receptors. We love dairy because we love it as if it were a drug. And I know that that's shocking, but I have to tell you, when you get off of dairy, you will be so much happier. So one thing I do want to say about this list is take it very slow. There is no need to rush. You've got all the time in the world. Maybe pick some categories that would be easier, like caffeine or wheat or soy or corn, white potatoes. These are all addictive substances, and you can start anywhere on this list. You can even ignore this list and just start making healthy foods and gradually crowd out this list of processed foods. I do have 2 foods on here which are not addictive. They are corn-fed beef and pork. And the reason why I have them on the list is because I want everyone to think very carefully about humane issues. We do need animal protein. Animal protein stabilizes our blood sugars much better than low protein foods. So we do need to be able to eat animal proteins in general. Even if you're vegan, though, you can work this food plan. But we really do, we want to ask if the animals have been humanely treated. Nuts have something called tryptophan in them, which is a serotonin precursor. People get started and they can't stop. And puffed grains are also very altered, and it's very easy to overeat them. So these are the foods that I recommend people eliminate from their diets. We see most of them are addictive, which means we start to eat them and we can't stop. Oh, this really answers the question of, are there triggers for overeating in my food? So this is very similar to when people went to stop smoking. And they said, well, I need to stop smoking. The Surgeon General says that smoking is related to cancer. All right, I'll just quit. And they couldn't quit. The cravings were driving them crazy. I want a cigarette. I want a cigarette. I know I shouldn't have a cigarette. Frontal lobe is saying, don't have that cigarette. But the craving pathways are so powerful that they overwhelm this, I shouldn't be doing this. And you go and do it, which is very distressing behavior. So processed foods are exactly the same. You may find that you go through a bit of withdrawal, or you have a headache or a stomach ache, or you feel extra cravings, or extra irritable, extra tired. It's okay. It'll last 4 to 8 days, and then it'll be over and it will stop. So go after this. Get on it. Just study that list. Go to foodaddictionresources.com and just give yourself a week to think about it. How would I do this? Which one of these would be easiest for me to start with? And go very, very slowly. Now, I know this is going to sound odd, but my best bit of advice is don't eliminate anything until you feel really ready. Like, I am really ready to give up nuts, or I am really ready to give up puff cereal, or I'm going to choose puff cereal to give up because I don't eat it anyway. Pick the easiest ones and then cut back gradually. So maybe you could just, when you get into the dairy category, you can start by eliminating cheese and then gradually work up. Okay, I don't need sour cream. Okay, I don't need heavy cream. Okay, I don't need milk. And then you've done it. But you've done it slowly. You know, give yourself weeks and weeks to get off dairy if you want. So be kind to yourself. Be considerate to yourself. Educate your household members about what you want to do, and then give them plenty of time to think about it. You can do this. I know you can do this. Get around people who already don't eat these foods, and you will find it to be incredibly much easier. If you have any questions about how to do this, please email me, foodaddictionreset@gmail.com. You're welcome to visit our website, foodaddictionreset.com, or you can find me out on Facebook. I spend a lot of time at my Facebook group, Food Addiction Education. So I will see you out there. I am here to help. You ask me all the questions you want. Send me a friend request, email me. Whatever I can do to help you is what I want to do. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is Dr. Joan Ifland signing off. See you soon.